The purpose of this module is to provide you with background information about the merger process and to give the group a common understanding of the what's, who's, and how's of merger. This is the foundation for the more detailed discussions that will follow for each concurrence point. These are the topics we will cover in this module. Why do we use the merger process? We'll give an overview of the process. What is the merger process and its components? What is concurrence? And we'll give an overview of the 7 concurrence points used in the merger process. The concept of a merger process started at the federal level following the passage of ICE-T, the Intermodal Surface Transportation Efficiency Act of 1991, federal transportation authorization legislation in the early 90s. ICE-T encouraged environmental streamlining, defined in law as the timely delivery of transportation projects while protecting and enhancing the environment. This environmental streamlining strategy was developed cooperatively by the Federal Highway Administration and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, and was called merger because it basically merges decision-making for 2 federal regulations, the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA, and Section 404 of the Clean Water Act, or CWA. In the mid-90s, North Carolina was experiencing substantial project delays in project development and permitting. Relationships between North Carolina Department of Transportation and the federal and state resource agencies were strained. FHWA suggested that North Carolina consider implementing a merger process to address these problems. Neither the problems nor the suggested process were unique to North Carolina. Many states were experiencing the same issues, and FHWA was promoting a merger process as one potential solution. Working cooperatively, FHWA, NCDOT, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers Wilmington District developed North Carolina's first merger process. This also resulted in an interagency memorandum of agreement signed in 1997, which has subsequently been modified. This slide shows the basics for why development of the merger process was essential and why it made sense to merge the requirements of these 2 acts and address each act concurrently rather than sequentially. The National Environmental Policy Act of 1969 requires disclosure of environmental impacts in the Environmental Impact Statement or Environmental Assessment when a major federal action is taken. For example, this would occur if funds are received from FHWA or if a federal permit is required. The Clean Water Act of 1977, as amended, requires a permit to discharge dredged or fill material into waters of the United States. It requires NEPA compliance to issue a Section 404 permit. Issuance of the permit is a major federal action. Both acts require the identification of a purpose and need, which, as we'll discuss later, is agreed upon during Concurrence Point 1. Identification of a full range of alternatives, which is agreed upon during Concurrence Point 2, and public notices as an opportunity for a public hearing and comment. These 2 federal acts have overlapping requirements and are involved with nearly all road development projects. Note that prior to the merger process in 1997, these acts were addressed sequentially, and there were obvious problems. For example, final environmental documents were completed before permits were applied for. There were inadequate alternative considerations. Right-of-way acquisition occurred prior to permit issuance, etc. This resulted in major redo loops, delays, and additional costs. Why do we do the merger process? The original merger process provided substantial benefits for both transportation project delivery and environmental quality in North Carolina. It provided the opportunity for early identification of showstopper issues, which are the issues that stop a project dead in its tracks, where it can stall for months or even years. Agency involvement during NEPA meant that any major environmental regulatory issue was identified and addressed during NEPA, not when the permit application submitted. Agreement among all participants, NCDOT and agencies, was locked in at key points in the decision-making. Again, this eliminated redo loops related to staff and/or management turnover. It kept the process steps in the proper sequence. The NEPA process and much of the substance of permitting were completed before right-of-way was purchased, final design was completed, and the project was let for construction. Appropriate, more complete information was provided to all participants, which ultimately created better decisions. The overall goal of merger is planning and constructing successful transportation projects that protect the environment to the greatest extent practicable. A successful project is one which uses a collaborative decision-making process to avoid and/or minimize impacts to the human and natural environment while meeting the safety and mobility needs of the traveling public. An interagency process improvement team was appointed to improve merger. This included eliminating the initial one-size-fits-all approach of the original merger. There are three somewhat different approaches tailored to the three major types of projects, which includes new location, widening, and bridge replacements. The original merger process was fairly general and not a lot of detailing for how it should be executed. Therefore, the process was being done differently throughout the state. The revised merger process has a great deal of detailed process information and standard procedures. It was noted that there were still some major problem points where many projects were getting bogged down. For example, bridging decisions were coming too late in the process. New concurrence points were added to get decisions made at the right point. The North Carolina Department of Environment and Natural Resources was not a formal partner in the original merger process, and were added to the formal partnership in merger because they are a major permitting agency. The result of these improvements is formally called the merger process today. This training is useful because the merger process that we use today was implemented in 2002. There are many projects that have gone through the process. Therefore, we have incorporated this experience into the training. Merger has been evolving over the years. It is at a point where it is time to make sure everyone understands the formal steps and requirements that have been agreed to by the partners. One of the biggest advantages for the merger process training is formalization and standardization. It creates clear expectations for all the partners on what information will be provided and what decision should result. Today, there is not a common understanding about merger and the correct way for it to be executed due to the high amount of staff turnover in all the participating agencies. It's imperative that we constantly refresh everyone's understanding and knowledge of the process so we can maintain consistency. What is merger in the big picture? Merger is a shared decision-making process that formally recognizes the legal role that environmental agencies have in transportation decision-making through their permitting regulations. It eliminates duplication of decision-making between NEPA requirements and permitting requirements, and also gives DOT a voice in the environmental regulatory process at a point where project adjustments can be made more easily, meaning before design, right-of-way, and letting are completed. Merger is designed to be a cooperative and collaborative process. All the participants in the process have missions based in their laws and regulations, so it's inevitable that these interests could conflict. Merger allows everyone a seat at the table to balance the competing interests, to find the best possible solution for everyone. The merger process also satisfies requirements of Safety Law. This is a federal transportation bill signed into effect in 2005. Section 6002 of Safety Law established an environmental review process for transportation projects that require a federal environmental impact statement. Because the merger process mostly met the requirements of 6002, NCDOT approached FHWA and asked if merger could serve as the process for NCDOT projects. FHWA agreed, providing a few changes were made to make it fully compliant, such as adding an opportunity for public involvement before CP1 for projects requiring an environmental impact study. There are two key elements that drive the success of the merger process. First is the use of project teams, and second, the use of processes that include a series of coordination approval steps called concurrence points. These two elements provide the means for achieving the big picture goals identified in the previous slide. The project team is made up of individuals from regulatory and resource agencies along with NCDOT, FHWA, and others. These individuals have delegated decision-making authority through the formal signed merger process agreements. The project team has scheduled meetings at critical coordination decision steps. This allows all the players to be in one place at the same time. The meetings provide the opportunity to share information, provide input, and make decisions. So why is it important to have coordination and collaboration with the agencies in the development of a road project? And why is it important that the project team includes all of these agencies? This slide is intended to show you what each of the agencies brings to the table. Agencies with regulatory authority include the United States Army Corps of Engineers, who regulate Section 404 of the Clean Water Act and Section 10 of the Rivers and Harbors Act. The North Carolina Department of Environment and Natural Resources, who regulate Section 401 of the Clean Water Act, the North Carolina Buffer Rules, and the Coastal Area Management Act. The Environmental Protection Agency, who regulates Sections 404Q and 401 of the Clean Water Act and Section 309 of the Clean Air Act, and the Federal Highway Administration, which is the funding authority and regulates such things as Section 4F of the Transportation Efficiency Act of 1966 and Section 106. The United States Fish and Wildlife Service, who regulates the Fish and Wildlife Coordination Act and the Endangered Species Act. The North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission, who regulates the Fish and Wildlife Coordination Act. And the North Carolina Division of Coastal Resources, who regulates the Historic Preservation Act. Other laws and legal authorities are included when a project is within their geographic area. Participation from the following agencies will be requested if within respective geographic areas: the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration Fisheries, the State Division of Marine Resources and Division of Coastal Management under DENR. These agencies regulate specific acts for 20 coastal counties, which are outlined in the Memorandum of Understanding. The United States Coast Guard, who regulate the Rivers and Harbors Act for permitted bridges. The National Park Service is involved if the project is in the vicinity of a national park because special use permits would be needed. The United States Forest Service is involved if the project is in the vicinity of a national forest because special use permits would be needed. The Tennessee Valley Authority is involved if the project is within their jurisdiction. The Eastern Band of Cherokee Indians may be involved if the project falls within that jurisdiction. And any metropolitan planning organizations who have jurisdiction in a project area. Rural planning organization representatives serving on a project team will now have authority to sign merger concurrence forms. This is a recent revision effective May 2012 and is reflected on the revised Memorandum of Understanding. The second key element that drives the success of the merger process is the use of processes that include a series of coordination approval steps called concurrence points. Concurrence points reflect critical decision coordination points that allow the project to move forward with expectation that the project can be authorized and constructed. They allow early-on identification of problems and the opportunity to resolve those problems early in project development. It makes it possible to avoid potential redo loops, major delays revisiting important issues, and potential referrals, permit vetoes, and/or permit denials. The core concept in the merger process is concurrence, which is when each team member and the agency that he or she represents agrees to the decisions made at these defining points in the project development process, and in doing so, pledges to abide by the decision made unless there is a profound changed condition. Key points about concurrence are that it is formal and binding. There is a signed document committing each participant to the decisions. The commitment is an agency commitment, not just a commitment of the individual representative. A project team member can concur, non-concur, or abstain. These terms will be discussed later when we speak of roles and responsibilities. The following is an overview of the 7 concurrence points used in the merger process. The first 4 include CP1, Purpose and Need; CP2, Detailed Study Alternatives Carried Forward; CP2A, Bridging Decisions and Alignment Review; and CP3, LEDPA Preferred Alternative Selection. The remaining 3 concurrence points include CP4A, Avoidance and Minimization; CP4B, 30% Hydraulic Review; and CP4C, Permit Drawings Review. Each of these concurrence points will be discussed in detail in later modules. Compensatory mitigation was also visited during the Interagency Process Improvement Initiative. Compensatory mitigation is providing compensation for environmental impacts that cannot be avoided and that still occur after minimization efforts are completed. Generally, we are talking about compensating for wetland and stream impacts, but might include impacts to endangered species, etc. Although compensatory mitigation was initially thought to need its own concurrence points, the improvement process resulted in the establishment of the Ecosystem Enhancement Program, which made that requirement unnecessary. Compensatory mitigation is generally recognized as either on-site or off-site. On-site compensatory mitigation is included in the merger processes and is designed along with the road project and performed by NCDOT. On-site compensatory mitigation is appropriate where opportunities exist adjacent to the roadway and/or measures can be incorporated into a project that provide environmental gain, such as removing an existing causeway and reestablishing a wetland. Off-site compensatory mitigation is performed by the EEP. Mitigation projects are based on the type and quantity of impacts occurring from the road project, with consideration of the overall watershed needs within the impacted hydrologic unit where the road project occurs. Through an analysis of potential Transportation Improvement Program project natural resource impacts, mitigation projects are scheduled, designed, and constructed in advance of the anticipated road project impacts. This effort is designed to establish successful, fully functioning mitigation projects in advance of actual project impacts.